gave a talk about AI, but it was brutally boring and there was nothing of substance at all in her speech. So we're going to skip ahead to the question and answer portion of her little talk. Let's hear what she had to say.
This will be for Minister Freeland. Kurt Brunich, Global News. When your government reduced immigration levels in October, Mark Miller said increased immigration helped keep Canada out of a recession. With your government's significant immigration reduction, should Canadians expect that Canada will enter a recession?
No.
Yeah, right. No. No is her answer. We're already in a recession. We're already in a recession. You know, men can't pay for groceries. Families can't pay for their homes, their mortgages, their rents. They can't pay for cars. They can't pay for gasoline. They can't pay to put their children in sports. They're working 2 jobs to try and make ends meet, and so on and so on. But we're not in a recession. And of course, there are official metrics that government loves to use to determine whether or not Canada is, or any other country, is actually in a recession. But of course, metrics can be manipulated, and they are manipulated often. So I find it far more accurate to simply walk on the ground and talk to men and women and mothers and fathers and families in your community to see what they're saying. And of course, they're all saying the same thing. The cost of living is soaring, and we're not keeping up. Are we better off now than we were 10 years ago or not? The answer is manifest.
Quick follow-up, thank you. Former Bank of Canada Governor Stephen Poloz says Canada is in a recession and our economy's weakness has been masked by population growth. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I can't wait for Freeland to disagree, because you know she's going to disagree. And the reason I can't wait for her to disagree is because for the last how many years, all we've heard from this government and governments across Canada, across the world for that matter, is listen to the experts. You're not an expert? Oh, you don't have a right to make a comment. You're not an expert in area Y? Then you can't make a comment on area Y. You should hush and listen to what the experts have to say. So here is an expert, former Bank of Canada governor, saying we are in a recession. And you know that he has more expertise than Freeland in this particular area. But of course, she's going to say, no, actually, he's wrong. Even though I'm not an expert, you know, says Freeland, he's wrong. And my assessment is right. So which is it? Are we supposed to listen to the experts, or are we not supposed to listen to the experts?
So let me just start by saying Steve Poloz is great. He has made huge contributions to Canada, continues to make huge contributions to Canada. And in fact, I have been working with him really, really closely on working hard to find ways to attract more investment by Canadian pension funds here in our own country. You know, part of a broader effort by the government to crowd in private capital. And we think we should be crowding in our own private capital too. So Steve has been doing a lot of great work on that, and I'm really grateful to him. When it comes to the Canadian economy.
Right, here it is. Here she's going to tell us why he's actually wrong.
What the current governor of the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, has said, I agree with, which is, you know, Canada appears to be on track for a soft landing.
Yeah. Isn't this the same guy who said that Canada appears to have an inflation which is short-lived and transitory? It looks like inflation's going to be short-lived and transitory, so it's like that wasn't true. That was a lie. That was a manifest lie. It was wrong. It was incorrect. So it's not as though you can just say, well, this individual is the governor of the Bank of Canada, and so his or her word is gospel. Nope.
From the COVID recession. And that was a really deep...
Well, what is a soft landing anyway? You know, we're going to have a soft landing. Freeland says this all the time. What constitutes a soft landing? And of course, there is no metric. It's whatever government wants it to be. If the landing is, you know, you lose 4% of GDP or whatever, just that's a random number, that's a soft landing compared to 5%. So it's an arbitrary term. It's an arbitrary term government uses to shield themselves from serious scrutiny.
Economic challenge for our country. The COVID recession was deeper than any recession in Canada since the Great Depression itself. We all know that that was followed by global inflation. and high interest rates that the Bank of Canada brought in to fight that inflation.
I'm so sick and tired of hearing about that global inflation too, as though it wasn't government's fault that they were printing more money. Like, who can print Canadian dollars? New Zealand can't do that. Australia can't do that. Ukraine can't do that. None of those countries can print Canadian dollars, which is what inflation is. It's an increase in the supply of money. It's not an increase in price. That's different. That's different. So who printed Canadian dollars? Wasn't me. Wasn't you. It was the Bank of Canada.
The good news is, for the past 10 months, inflation has been within the Bank of Canada's target range, and we've seen the Bank of Canada lower rates, interest rates, now 4 times in a row. The Bank of Canada was the first of the G7 central bank. It was the first bank in the G7 to lower rates for the first time, for the second time, for the third time, and for the fourth time.
Uh-oh, so you can say all of these nice things, even though, of course, it still means inflation is high, but it's like, look, the jobless rate reaches 6.8% in November, the highest since 2017. More people looking for work in a weak job market. It's like you can't hide the truth forever.
All of that is good news for Canadians. It is also the case that now that inflation has come down,
It actually hasn't. It's still going up. That's a manifest lie.
now that the Bank of Canada has been moving to lower rates, now is the time when all of us need to focus on economic growth.
Keynesian garbage. That's what this is. It's going to be followed with, so government has to spend more money. That's what Freeland's going to tell us. They got to pump up the economy. They got to pump up the economy.
And that is what the government is absolutely the government's priority. We know that we need stronger growth. We know that Canada has the capacity to have stronger growth. We know that stronger growth means more jobs, better paying jobs for Canadians from coast to coast to coast. The announcement today is part of that work. AI is really a big, very promising for Canada's growth plan for the future.
What was that sentence? A big, very promising growth for Canada's, economic future or something like that? Here's how government thinks, right? Spend more money, spend more money, spend more money. Spend more money on businesses who will then take that money and invest it in the market or in their own business, hire more workers, increase economic growth, and make the government look great. That's the idea. The problem, of course, is that the entire economy then is built on a lie. It's built on a foundation of sand, and it will crumble. It will crumble. Suppose that you're a business, and in normal market conditions, you would invest $100 a year into your business. That's what makes sense. That's what keeps the books balanced, and that's what allows you to grow at a nice, smooth rate. But then government comes along, and they say, here's some money, invest $1,000 every single year into your business. Invest more, hire more workers. And so you do so. That's what you do with the money. But of course, now you're over-investing. The market doesn't want you to invest $1,000 into your business. No, it wouldn't allow that under normal conditions. No, the government is forcing you to do that. And so you invest all of this money into new work, bigger shop, and so on and so on. And when government finally cuts off the spending, you're left with what? You're left with a business that normally should only be investing $100. You've overexpanded. Government has lied to you. And you find that once they're gone, the market is so much smaller than what you expected. You are nowhere near as efficient as what you thought. And so the business dies. The only way to stop that from happening then, and to keep those nice numbers up and high, is for government to keep pumping more money into the economy, into business. But government can't do that forever. There comes a point at which even they have to stop. The lie will be exposed for what it is.
It's promising because this is a cutting edge technology in the world, and we can be a leader here. And it's promising because it has the capacity to drive productivity throughout the economy. And the other aspect of today that is really important is we recognize that to have growth, yes, we need facilitating investments from the government of Canada, from the people of Canada, but we also need to crowd in private capital. And that's what we're working hard to do.
Thank you.
Next question. Prochaine question.
May Look from The Logic. Have you had any discussions with institutional investors about providing project financing for data centers under the AI Compute Challenge?
We are having a lot of discussions with a lot of people about getting more investment coming into Canada in AI, in data centers, and across the whole economy.
Right. And do you have any idea how big and where the data center will be?
We've announced all the details that we're prepared to announce today, but I will say in Canada.
Thank you.
Next question. Prochaine question. We'll have time for one last question. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Minister. David Lau with CBC News. My question today is about the fall economic statement. Normally, the FES is released in November. It's now December. Is the FES delayed because the deficit is too big? That's my question.
No.
So why is it delayed? This will be the next question.
Not too big.
Yeah. Okay, you guys sometimes like short answers. So let me say, when it comes to the fall economic statement, I will deliver a fall economic statement this year. We have had the work of Parliament filibustered for more than 2 months. The regular work of our House of Commons has been blocked. That has consequences. It makes it much harder for our government to do our work. We will deliver a fall economic statement. I'm looking forward to it.
En français, Madame Freeland.
As Canadians, we are not looking forward to it. We know how bad it's going. No, we know it's going to be bad. My guess is it's going to be so much worse than what we thought or what we're hoping for. Government is totally incompetent. They are good at one thing, which is driving Canada into the ground, which is making all men, all women, all families totally dependent on the federal government, that we might have no choice but to approach them and say, can we have some more bread, please? And of course, government responds, oh yeah, just keep us in power. What they are doing is brutal. It's sinister, dare I say. And all of this talk about economics, and Freeland's proposal about economics is total fluff. It's deceit. It's a deception meant to trick us into thinking the economy is so wonderful. Take a look outside. It's not.